Okay, welcome to Quilt Tribe. Yay! So this is our second to last class. It's going to be your last blocks, and then next month we're going to be putting the quilt all together. So it's pretty exciting. So let's start out with the fox. And the fox, I love this little picture of the fox. I think it's really cute. Isn't that a cute little picture? So here's our block. And it's basically you're going to pick 4 of your favorite colors. It's best if you kind of keep them pretty solid, not really busy for this one. And I'll put it up on the board, and then we'll go through on how to make it. It's real simple. So when you pick your 4 colors, and you're going to lay them out, I chose to lay it out so I didn't put these 2 ones that are very similar in value and color. I put them across from each other, and just to spread the color out. Can you see if I did that, how it's like really pink on one side? So that's why I kind of switched it. So that's your biggest decision that you need to make on this block. We can handle that, right? Yes. Yeah, we can do that. So you're going to sew it together and make your 4-patch. And as we commonly do, we're going to open up that back seam and swirl it to reduce that bulk. And once that's all done, then we're just going to lay out our larger corner squares so it corresponds with that center 4-patch. So you can choose to do this block first if you want immediate gratification that you're accomplishing something, or you could do it last to reward yourself, right? Right. So I guess it matters what kind of day you have and how much time you have going on. Then we're just going to lay it out like a big 9-patch, and that's all there is to it. Okay, we're going to press our seams so that they go away from our background. So they're going to go towards the corners, and then the middle row will go towards the middle. Okay? Yay! Yay! I like that block. I do too. I think it's pretty too. The colors are pretty. All right. Okay, so here's the next one. And the next one I called pipe, and I'm just probably looking for a P word. That's why it's called pipe. It's a block that's done on point. It looks like it'd be kind of complicated because it has all these kind of weird shapes to it, but I tried to make it really simple for you. So I'll put it up on the board. You can watch as it goes through. So we're going to start out with longer strips of fabric. Move my rulers a little bit. So you have a wide background. And then we're going to have a narrow, whatever color you choose to use, and then a narrow background and a wide color. Okay, that's how it starts. And we're going to sew those together, and it's going to look like this. So I'll keep in the same order. And I just press my seams so they go towards the color and away from the background. Okay, so we got that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut it into slices. So when we do that, we're going to have a wide slice, a narrow one, another narrow one, and a wide one. Okay, whoops, so it goes like that. So you see how that first one is just cut into the desired measurement depending on what size blocks you're doing. So if we think of this as being the first column, we're going to take the second column and we're going to turn it around. And then we're going to leave the third column just as it is, and we'll take the fourth column and we'll turn it around. And we're going to sew those seams together. So let's take a look at it, what it looks like sewn. Okay, so here you go. It's all sewn together now. And the next thing you're going to do, based on your blocks, if you're doing the 6-inch finished block, you're going to take probably a triangle square up ruler, the 6.5. I'm doing 9-inch today, so I'm taking this 9.5-inch ruler. If you're doing the 12-inch blocks, you can use the 12.5-inch square up ruler. And this ruler has 2 diagonals on it that go right down the middle, and that's going to be my guide. I'm going to take the green line, it's going to go right on the center seam there. And then on this red dash line is going to go on that seam there. And you just center it the best you can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to square it up. So I'll do 2 sides. Pretty easy, huh? Very tricky, isn't it? Okay, and I don't want to sew, cut awkward, so I'm just going to turn it around and cut the remaining 2 sides. There you go. So you can get, you like that? Now we're definitely going to keep these pieces because we can do something on the back with those. Those are definitely usable pieces. But I wanted to show you some things. I want to show you what it looks like block to block up on the board because it's kind of interesting. You can have this option. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of what kind of quilt pattern you can get if you repeat it. If I kind of turn this just 90 degrees and I have my color next to my background, the advantages of doing it this way is that all these seams are going to lock together because of the way we pressed it. So that works out really nice. I think it's really a fun pattern.
I like it.
Yeah, I think it'll work good. The only thing you have to worry about with this block is that you do have bias exposed. So if you're going to be pressing it, just make sure that you don't use a lot of steam. You know, be very respectful of that steam or it'll get a little wobbly on you. Okay, so that's the second block. That's kind of fun, huh? I was going to say we don't have any geese, but we do. Just because. Let's see if we're going to do. I think, yeah, that's the next one we're going to do is this. Okay. So here's our next block. It's called Raccoon. And what we're going to be learning with this block is we're going to be learning, do you see this little bird fabric right here? It's very directional. Not only is it directional up and down, but it's directional going across. So we're going to see how that works in this block, okay? Very balanced block that is. Okay, so we're going to start out making our flying geese. And since I'm using doing the 9-inch blocks, I'm going to be using the 2.5 ruler. So if I turn it over, you can see how it says 2.5 right there. And the reason it's called 2.5 is because the finished height of this ruler is 2¼ inches. So I guess that's kind of like a fancy way of saying 2¼ is 2.25, right? Okay, so we have that. And when you start with this directional fabric, it's really fun the way it comes out because you're going to have one geese with the birds going this way, another geese with the birds going this way, this one with the birds up here, and this one with the birds right there. So it's a really good lesson. You don't have to do anything tricky to get all your birds in a line. It's just the way that technique works. Because if you don't, you'd be thinking about, okay, if you're doing like the method where you start with a rectangle and then you put squares, you're going, okay, now these squares go here on this one and they go here on that one. You don't have to worry about it. So it's really fun. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew rectangles to it. So I need to make sure that when I sew my rectangles that they're going in the same direction as the geese birds. Like I wouldn't want to sew this upside down. Okay? And if you're using directional fabric, you're going to sew or cut 2 of your rectangles so they're like horizontal, and then 2 of your rectangles so they're vertical. And that way they'll match up your sides. So that works pretty easy, huh? Yep. It's something that looks like complicated, like you really were really tricky about it, but it's not. I like it when things work like that, don't we? Yes. Okay, now we're going to make our corners. So I'm just going to start with a background strip and a medium 1 strip. I'm just going to flip those right sides together and sew them. And I'll press it towards the medium fabric. Pretty self-explanatory. Now when you go, you're going to make 2 of these sets. And your first one, you're going to lay out like so the darkest is going to be closest to your body. And then the next one we're going to do right sides together. We're going to put the dark so it's away from your body. And you'll see that the seam will be going up in front. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut it into 4 equal pieces because you need 4, 1 for each of the corners, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that for you. I'm going to cut them at 2 inches. So you just get 4. I always put a little bit of extra fabric in the beginning and at the end. And that way you'll know you'll have a really nice straight line at both sides of this 4-patch. So you can see this is all that I had extra. And you have your 4-patch. And then what I'm going to try not to put it apart just like what I did. But this is really great because now when I pick up this pair, I'm going to have my fabrics in the right position. The seam on top is going to be going up. Everything's going to be in alignment. I'm just going to go down and sew each seam together. Now the difference with this 4-patch is that we are not going to open the seam in the back. And the reason being is because I'm going to turn these upside down because I think it'll help you get a good view of what's going on. I have to keep my birds in the right direction or it'll drive me crazy. Okay, so when I made this unit, the rectangles to the flying geese, I pressed everything towards the rectangle. That's the way they're going to want to go. They're not going to want to fight that. And so when I go to sew this in, these seams are going down, but these seams are going out. And you'll get a really nice match point doing it that way. So sometimes based on what you're trying to line up is if you're going to open that seam or not. But see how nicely that is? Okay. And then that'll be my center. So that's it. You can kind of get the idea. You have a front and back. So there you go. Is that a good one? Yep. See, you thought it was going to be hard, and it wasn't at all. Nope. Okay, let's turn the pages. Next thing we're going to do is spear. And here's another lesson that we're going to have on directional fabric. Now this fabric's only directional up and down. We don't really have to worry about the legs of the birds, you know, that kind of thing. But we'll start out, we're going to make 2 sizes of geese. I could put it up on the board, I guess. I must have been in kind of a turquoise mood when I picked my fabrics, huh? Yeah, I'm really anxious to get all my blocks all put together, out on the board at the same time and see, okay, that month I was on an orange thing, this month I'm on a blue thing, this month I'm on a pink thing. Sadie's month will probably be the pink thing, right? Okay, so again, I'm going to start with 2 squares with the directional fabric, and it really doesn't matter which way you draw your line, as we found out. And when we go to make our geese, you're going to notice that 2 of them are going to have your directional fabric going this way, and 2 of them will have your directional fabric going this way. And that's exactly what we want. So that takes care of those. And then for that little geese that you see towards the end, or towards the outside corners, is just done with same thing, smaller pieces. And you're going to make your little geese that look like that. Isn't that cute? Now when you do these 2 sizes of geese like this, no matter what, if you're doing 6, 9, or 12-inch blocks, whatever ruler I tell you to use, the large one's going to be this large marking on the ruler, and the small one's going to be the small one. So each block only needs 1 ruler. Oh, okay, that's the way it works. Oh, that's good. Yeah, because this is actually 4 times bigger than this. You could fit like 4 of these in there. Okay, so to sew these, the first thing I need to do is I need to sew little background squares to both sides of this little geese. And I find it much easier to sew if I have the base of my geese going up, and I'm going to flip these little squares right sides together and sew down. The reason being, if you look underneath, can you see how that seam's going down? And if I was to start at this side and sew down, I'd run into this and it'd probably get all squishy. You know what I'm talking about? It gets kind of, it's not real clean. Let's just put it that way. So we're going to go ahead and get it sewn, and we'll press our seams away towards the squares. And then after that's done, we're going to take a larger rectangle and we're going to flip this right sides together. And so here's a little squishy example for you right there. I left one just to show you. And when you go to sew it, one thing that you can really want to watch is that this seam that you're adding right here, it should go right to the center of the X from that flying geese seams. And that way, when that happens, when you go to press this open, see how what a nice point I get right there at the top? So that's something you can see from the back about what's going to go on to the front. So here it is here. And then we're going to go back to our geese, big geese. And we're just going to do the same thing. We made 4 sets of these. We have 4 geese. So you're just going to do that right sides together and sew down, again paying attention to where that X is. Okay? So I have 4 of them, and I'm going to lay them out. And the biggest thing that you need to watch is you need to watch the direction of your geese. Okay, so it's going good. And hopefully that one falls into place. Yeah, I kind of have to watch when I do things in steps. I have to make sure that I keep 2 of each out for each step, you know. Because when I first did, I go, oh, why do I have 3 in one? And I go, oh, yeah, because I did more than one. And I did, once it's all sewn together, you can open up that center seam. And it's really nice because all these seams lock together, these diagonal seams going in there, because of the way your geese are pressed. So it should be really smooth sailing on that one. Yeah, it's kind of like geese with a little spunk to it or something. Okay, so the final one is called Wigwam. And it's another chance for you guys to pick out a new fussy cut. Yeah, this little seal, this is from Tula Pink's new line. I think it's Animal Spirits it's called. And I think it's really cute. I think he's really cute, this little otter. So first thing we're going to do is you fussy cut. I mean, if you don't have a fussy cut fabric, it doesn't really matter. You can use a print fabric, but something that will kind of pull your colors together. And you have little short backgrounds, so you do the sides first, and then you're going to add your top and bottom. Okay, and all these seams will get pressed away from your fussy cut. So it'll look like this. So here it is from the front, and you can see how the back, how it's pressed. Now to make our side pieces, I tried something a little bit different, and I'm just going to make this one unit that looks like this, and kind of when you lay it out, it's going to look like a little kimono. Oh, yeah. So when you sew it together, it's going to look like this. It is a kimono. Now it's really a kimono. And you're going to press all your seams away from your background. When I go to cut this apart, I'm going to cut it 4 times. And this is a really quick way of doing all these instead of sewing a bunch of little squares together. So since I'm doing the 9-inch, I'm cutting it 2 inches for these little strips. You have a little bit at the beginning and end. And then on this little piece, see, I have a little extra. You can just take that off. That's just to make sure that I had enough. It's better to have too much than not enough, right? Okay, so let's go back and get our center. So here's our center. So these short ones are going to become my sides. Okay, so we're going to sew those on. Cool. And then this will be my top and bottom. See, that's a really easy way of sewing those squares, and they're going to be really straight for you. Wow. When you go to sew your sides on, you want to make sure that you press your sides towards the center. So when you sew your top and bottom on, they'll lock because this is pressed towards the corners. Okay, and you can see here that there's a really narrow little border here. And I could have done like some 1/8-inch markings and things like that and got it fit exactly, but I decided to keep the markings really clean or your measurements clean. So I put a little framing border on the end, and then you just square it up to the right size. Okay, just remember you got to square it up because when you go to sew it in your quilt, it's not going to match. Okay, so that's all there is to it. That's pretty tricky, huh? That's pretty. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for coming, and we'll see you. Bye.